I used to think being removed from something would come with noise, a fight, a confrontation, some slammed door. But it didn't. It came in the form of a quiet system email and a subject line that read, "Update to shared ownership documents." There was no greeting, no name, just a PDF attachment and one final sentence typed in clean font. "All relevant parties have been notified and confirmed." I reread that line twice, then once more, slower. "Relevant parties." It echoed in my chest like a polite insult. The condo had been under both names. My parents had insisted, just in case. "If anything happens, you're protected. We trust you." I believed them. Enough to sign. Enough to pay property taxes for 3 years. Enough to never ask for my key back when they changed the locks because Zach needed the space. I didn't feel surprised, just still, like the air around me had stopped humming. The next thing that lit up my phone was a text from Zach. One line, "Don't come Sunday. Mom says it'd be better." No context, no reason, no lie, even. Just a closing. 3 days earlier he had sent another, "Might be good to keep your distance for a bit." There's a lot going on. I hadn't replied. I didn't know how to type something that wouldn't sound like begging. I stayed in the parking lot, engine off screen, still glowing. My hand rested on my thigh, fingers curled inward like I was holding something that wasn't there. On my wrist, the leather watch band Dad had given me for my promotion had frayed at the buckle. I hadn't worn it in months, but for some reason I'd put it on that morning. The dashboard clock blinked past the hour I was supposed to be somewhere else. I scrolled back to the first email, opened the document, and looked for my name. It wasn't there. Just Daniel Hayes. Marlene Hayes. Zachary Hayes. It wasn't the removal that hurt. It was the neatness of it. Like I had never been part of the structure at all. Like they'd simply erased a line they'd always meant to. And in that moment, I didn't feel like fighting for clarity. I just closed the screen and stayed very, very still. There's a particular kind of silence that comes after trying too hard for too long. It doesn't echo. It just folds in on itself like a sweater worn thin at the elbows. I used to think if I did enough, if I stayed useful, they'd notice I was also there. Every Thanksgiving I brought the wine. Not the kind on sale, but the bottle Mom once offhandedly called decent. I paid the full restaurant bill on her birthday, even after everyone split it 4 ways. When the waiter came with the card reader, no one stopped me. No one even looked up. One year I booked a table at that French place with the string lights she liked. I picked the seat facing the kitchen so she could face the candles. In the photo, I'm a sliver at the edge. My shoulder made the frame. My face didn't. "You're always so accommodating," Dad once said. Then he added without irony, "Maybe too much. It's why people take you for granted." I don't remember what I replied. I just remember folding the napkin slowly like that would anchor the moment. When Zach needed help applying for his business loan, I rewrote his proposal, proofread the documents, paid the notary. He didn't invite me to the launch. Later, over lunch, he laughed. "You'd just make it too formal anyway." I once asked Mom if she needed help organizing her prescription schedule. Her response came sharp, clean. "You make everything harder with your systems. I'd rather forget a dose than be managed." Even Jason, before he left, had leaned back in the passenger seat and said, "You're always somewhere else. Even when you're sitting right next to me. It's like you're married to your family." He wasn't wrong. There's a Christmas card still pinned to my fridge. The handwriting is Marlene's. Inside it reads, "With love from all of us. Daniel, Zach, and your big sister." At the bottom, in loopy cursive, "And our eldest daughter, of course. Not my name, just the concept of me. I used to think if I stayed quiet, stayed helpful, they'd fold a place for me at the table. Turns out I was just filling chairs no one else wanted. And eventually, even those were claimed. Some things disappear before you notice they're gone. Others stay in plain view, quietly stripped of meaning. When I got nominated for department lead, I called just to let her know. I'd rehearsed how to keep it short, modest. Mom paused, then said, "You always were good at projects, not so much at keeping people." She didn't ask what the role meant, just folded me into an old judgment and moved on. Zachary's birthday always meant balloons, streamers, the fun uncle flying in from Denver. Even the dog wore a hat once. Mine. One year, I got a voicemail at 11:47 p.m. Dad's voice muffled like he was in the garage. "Hope your day was okay. You still working weekends?" No mention of the day itself. Just an echo. I remember knitting a sweater one winter, soft chestnut wool pattern unraveled and redone 3 times. I left it folded on the armchair during Christmas week with a tag. She never wore it. A year later, I saw it in the garage pressed into a donation box marked Miski. No note. Not even a thanks. Just a clean exit. I gave Dad a new drill when his old one jammed. A subtle gesture, nothing wrapped. A week later, I saw it in Terry's truck bed tucked under a tarp. Your dad thought it was better in hands that'd use it. Mom told me scooping potato salad like she was offering grace. I didn't answer. The photo from the beach trip sits above their mantel. I remember the moment how I held Zach's backpack while he tied his shoes, how the wind snapped the corners of Marlene's scarf. But in the printed version, I'm missing. The edge of my jacket's there, barely like a mistake someone meant to crop out. No one noticed. Or maybe they did and preferred it that way. Once I baked a berry pie fresh, not from a kit. Brought it to the 4th of July table, where grocery cakes stood like trophies. "Oh," Aunt Celia blinked. "That looks a bit much." I left it untouched in the kitchen. Took it home that night. The crust had collapsed inward. I ate a slice, cold. None of this was loud. No yelling. No accusations. Just the steady hum of being left out, piece by piece, until I became someone who filled a chair without weight. Eventually, even the chair forgot I'd been there. Some betrayals don't come like fire. They arrive folded into politeness, wrapped in linen napkins, served between courses. They told me it was just dinner. Nothing formal, just the 4 of us. The kind of sentence that sounds harmless when you're still hoping to be wrong. Mom lit candles, though she pretended they were already there. Zach sat with his hands under the table, twisting something I couldn't see. Dad poured the water with both hands like he always did when he wanted control of the room. I brought my notebook. Unwritten pages, pen balanced between fingers. The kind of habit I developed to keep my hands from giving me away. Dinner began with polite distractions. Car tires, mild weather, a coupon for siding repair. I waited. They were stalling. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Zach's gotten himself into something complicated. There's a pending settlement." He didn't look at me when he said it. His fork paused mid-air. His tone landed gently, like he was reporting a change in traffic patterns. Mom leaned forward. "It's unfortunate, but we've all talked and we think you're in the best position to help." Zach didn't speak. His glass was nearly empty, untouched. He didn't look sorry. He looked prepared. Dad glanced toward my plate. "It's 210,000. Not all at once, of course. Just enough to avoid escalation. Not one of them asked if I could. Or if I would. They just presented it like a group project I had somehow volunteered for." Mom folded her napkin carefully. You've always managed well, Rowan. You don't crumble under pressure like the rest of us. Zack finally murmured something. It's not like we're asking forever. Just until I get stable. My napkin slipped from my lap onto the floor. I didn't reach for it. No one else did either. I looked at my notebook. The page stared back, clean, untouched. My pen sat idle on the wood. Dad leaned back. You've always known how to do the right thing. I didn't speak. Not because I was uncertain, but because nothing I could say would have made a dent in what had already been decided. They hadn't asked. They'd arranged. To them, I wasn't their daughter, I was a reliable line in a spreadsheet, a contingency plan with a polite smile. I placed the pen inside the notebook and closed the cover. That was the only sound I allowed myself. Everything else I kept. Not all exits require slamming doors. Some happen in silence, like a light dimming in a room no one noticed was lit. After dinner, I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs made a soft sound against the floor, the kind people pretend not to hear. I folded my napkin neatly and placed it beside the untouched corner of my plate. I'll leave tonight. I have work early tomorrow. No questions. No pause. Just the clink of glass as Zack shifted his cup and Mom adjusted the position of the serving dish as if symmetry mattered more than presence. Dad didn't look up. Don't forget to turn off the hallway light when you leave, that was all. Not a goodbye. Not even a glance. I walked out without putting on my coat. It hung by the door next to the one Zack borrowed and never returned. I didn't reach for it. Back at the apartment, I opened the closet and took down the navy suitcase. The handle was slightly worn from years of being pulled in and out of hotel lobbies. I filled it slowly. Jeans, 2 sweaters, a toothbrush, the same grey t-shirt I used to wear on Sundays. No heels, no photos. In the top drawer, tucked beneath a stack of receipts, was the spare key I'd made for Mom. I had labelled it in blue ink. Just in case. I placed it inside a plain white envelope and left it on the table. I didn't write her name on it. She would know what it was. Inside the wardrobe behind the hanging coats was a taped photo of the 4 of us at a fall festival, hay bales, painted pumpkins, a wooden sign that said, "Family is everything." I peeled the tape off, carefully folded the photo once, and slid it into the drawer with expired coupons and unmatched buttons. I didn't throw it away. I just refused to carry it forward. No text, no email, no note left by the door. "Let us know when you get home," Mom had said earlier, her voice, even eyes on the pie she was slicing. I had nodded, but only out of habit. Some departures don't need announcement. Only the decision not to return. There's a difference between being alone and being unobserved. I didn't know that until the silence stopped asking anything from me. The apartment was smaller than I expected. A monthly rental in a town I hadn't meant to stay in near water. I couldn't see from the window unless I leaned out too far. It had no furniture, just the basics. Walls, outlets, shadows that stretched longer than they should have. That was enough. I carried in 1 suitcase. The zipper stuck near the corner. I didn't fix it. The mattress arrived in a box. I opened it with a kitchen knife I bought for $6. It unfolded with a soft sound, settled on the floor with no resistance. No bed frame. No sheets with corners sewn down. Just the raw shape of rest. The first thing I did was screw a brass hook into the door. I didn't measure. I just held it where my coat would fall comfortably and turned the screwdriver, slowly feeling it bite into the wood. I hung my coat there alone. Not next to anyone's. Not beside a welcome mat that read, "Family." In the kitchen, I boiled water in a dented silver kettle and dropped in a bag of plain black tea. No sugar, no honey. I placed the mug white-worn hairline crack near the handle onto the table without a coaster. The thud of ceramic on bare wood felt like a sentence I didn't have to explain. I sat and looked at the window. No one knocked. No one called to ask if I'd settled in. My phone stayed face down, silent. I let the tea go cold before sipping it. "You always take things too far," Mom had once told me. "Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're right." I had said nothing. I remember folding a towel, then slow and careful, pressing the seams with my hands so they wouldn't unravel. Now I folded my socks the same way. In this apartment, I had one drawer that worked properly, and I filled it only halfway. A sweater, a shirt, a pair of jeans, enough to keep warm, enough to belong to myself. I noticed a mark on the wall behind the stove, faint outline of a clock once mounted round clean. Someone else had left quietly too. I didn't hang anything in its place. I didn't play music. I didn't light candles. I didn't take photos of the new space to send to anyone. I just stood at the window sipping what was left of the tea. It was bolde. It was mine. And no one needed me to smile. Absence only stings when it interrupts something real. Otherwise, it just makes people scramble to restore symmetry. 4 days after I left, I got a message from my mother. "Dad's worried. You should call." It wasn't a question. It didn't ask how I was. It simply informed me that my silence had created an inconvenience. 2 more followed in the next week. "Zach's overwhelmed. He's not himself lately." "Then please just talk to him. You know how he gets when things aren't stable." Stable. That was always the word they used when they wanted me to clean up without asking questions. Zach left 3 voicemails. "You can't just leave everything like this. They're falling apart without you." "This isn't about you, Rowan. It never was." The last one made me pause. I replayed it once just to be sure I'd heard it correctly. I had. A week later, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside a photo, Christmas 2 years ago. We were all wearing matching red sweaters. I remember it clearly. The heat of the fireplace, the itch in the collar, the photographer Mom insisted on hiring. I was in the photo, yes, but not centered. I stood at the edge, partly blocked by an end table, my smile caught mid-motion. On the back, in my father's handwriting, "Keep this. Remind yourself." Then came the call from Pastor Collins. "They're struggling, Rowan. Maybe just come for dinner. No expectations. Just presence." Then quieter, "Even if you're angry, don't let them feel abandoned." That word abandoned landed wrong, like I had walked away from something whole, as if presence had ever guaranteed inclusion. I brewed tea and let the mug rest on the windowsill. A small ring of moisture gathered underneath, but I didn't move it. I watched it form, expand, then fade. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They missed the buffer. I provided the steady weight of someone who caught their mess before it spilled, who smiled through chaos, who didn't require room. What they wanted back wasn't my voice. It was my function. I placed the photo back in the envelope and slid it into the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept twist ties, rubber bands, things I might need, but don't trust enough to use again. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't explain. Some people don't remember you. They remember what you used to hold up. Some routines don't change on the outside. They just feel different once they belong to you. I started working part-time at a local non-profit. My title wasn't printed anywhere, but people learned my name. I handled receipts, filed grant reports, answered emails no one else wanted to deal with. At 5 p.m., I turned off the desk lamp and walked out without checking my phone. No one followed me out. In the mornings, I made coffee in the small French press I found at a second-hand shop. It left grounds at the bottom, but the taste felt more honest than anything I'd brewed before. I began to sit with it. No emails, no lists. Just the cup and the quiet. The cactus by the window had slumped sideways last month. The pot cracked along the base from dry soil. I repotted it using a chipped blue mug and started watering it every Sunday. This week, 2 new arms appeared, small, uneven, determined. I taped a note above the kitchen sink. I don't need permission to take up space. No one would read it, but me. That made it truer. The cafe down the street let me pick up weekend shifts. The owner, a man in his 50s with reading glasses strung around his neck, called out my order without asking. "Green tea, no sweetener. You don't fake things, do you?" I gave a half smile and stirred the cup slowly. At night, I cooked more. I learned how to make lentil soup without looking at a recipe. I began seasoning to taste instead of measuring. I stopped plating food like it needed to be approved. One drawer in the apartment stayed empty. I opened it sometimes just to remember that nothing needed to fill every space. I no longer kept photos on the fridge. I clipped up grocery receipts and handwritten reminders. Water plant, return library book, you are already enough. Small private truths taped in plain sight. Once in a voicemail I never returned. My mother said, "You've changed, Rowan. You used to be softer." She didn't mean it as a compliment. She never had. But I remembered it as I sliced into an orange slow and even. The peel came off in one spiral. Softness isn't what they missed. It was my silence in service of them. And I don't serve that version of myself anymore. Some endings don't need closure. They just need to no longer be open. I printed the forms on my old office printer, the one that leaves a faint line down the right margin. Transfer of residence, dissolution of shared obligation, removal of dependent parties. Each phrase sounded sterile, which made them easier to sign. I filled in the blanks without hesitation, initials curling neatly at the corners. There was a question near the end. Reason for removal, I left it blank. At the notary's desk, the woman glanced at my ID, then at the name I'd typed on the form. Ellison. I nodded. She hesitated, pen hovering. Used to be something else I didn't answer. She stamped it anyway. I chose my mother's maiden name not out of reverence, but out of neutrality. It was the only name in the family no one had claimed, no one had twisted into obligation. I kept my first name because I'd already lived inside it long enough to trust its weight. I visited the bank that afternoon. The clerk wore a badge that read Natalie in cursive. She glanced at the update request. Will this name be on all active accounts? Yes. Any co-signers? Not anymore? In my wallet, I slid in the new debit card behind the driver's license. I'd taken a new ID photo too. No makeup, plain hair, grey t-shirt. It wasn't flattering, but it was accurate. I stopped by the post office on the way home. The box I carried wasn't labelled. Inside were handwritten letters, some with curled edges and ink that had bled from too many years in humid drawers. One was folded around a clipped newspaper article titled, "The Responsible One Always Comes Through." The clerk tilted the box, mailing or discarding neither, just letting go. He placed it on a cart without comment. At home, I emptied the top kitchen drawer, the one where I used to keep receipts from family dinners I'd paid for, but never been reimbursed. I found an old loyalty card from a brunch place we went to twice. It had 5 stamps. The 6th would have earned a free meal. I tore it in half. Zach texted that evening. "So I guess this is you," deleting us. I left it unread. I stood at the window holding the new ID between my fingers. No applause, no ceremony, just the quiet clarity that nothing needed to be erased, only released. I didn't realize how much weight was in being expected until it was gone. There are no sticky notes on my fridge now. No blinking messages waiting to be answered. No calendars crowded with names I never added myself. The air in my apartment doesn't press against my ribs like it used to. It just exists the way I do without reason, without witness. I still drink from the old mug with the chipped handle and faded green print that once said something encouraging. I don't remember the exact words anymore, just the shape of them. Every morning I pour coffee in it strong and unsweetened, not for energy, just because it's mine. I fold the same clothes each week, 2 sweaters, a shirt, 1 pair of jeans soft from wear. I water the plant on the sill every Sunday. It's leaning toward the light again. No flowers, just steady green. That feels like enough. No one asks how I'm spending my time. No one weighs my silence. Sometimes I walk past the corner store just to see if they've changed the window display. I don't go in. I like not being recognized. The phone hasn't rung in weeks. Not from them. Not from anyone who used to count on me to answer fast to smooth things over. The silence stretched long enough to stop being punishment. It became pattern. Then it became mine. I've started writing again 1 sentence at a time. Not for work, not for memory. Just because sometimes a line needs somewhere to go. Last Tuesday I wrote, "Some people love the shelter, not the roof." There's a drawer beside my bed with 1 envelope in it. Handwritten, sealed. I haven't opened it since I moved here. I keep it not because I need what's inside, but because it reminds me I don't. The non-profit stays small. 1 woman came in last week, tired eyes, voice like sandpaper. She sat down before speaking. I handed her a clipboard, no questions. She nodded slowly like someone remembering their own name. That was enough. This morning, I stood at the balcony with the scarf I only wear when it's too warm for coats, but too cold to be brave. The street below didn't shift for me. The sky stayed the same. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder who needed saving. I just stood, and nothing asked me to explain.